Hey, it's Tawana with Destiny Education. Tonight we're coming to talk about Luke chapter 9, verse 62. Jesus said to him, "No one puts their hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God." Let me do that again. Jesus said to him, "No one who puts their hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God." So many times we go through the Bible and we always want to look at something and we lose sight of how whatever it is we're looking at in the Bible deals with contextually the time of today. And so today, that's exactly what we're going to talk about. Let's look at this Bible verse and understand this. There's nothing wrong with the way it's written. We are not changing it. What we are doing is giving you an understanding of how to see it in today's world. It is correct 100%. You put your hand to the plow and you look back, you're not fit for the kingdom of God. But it also talks to what happens when we are living this life, constantly looking over our shoulder to see what's behind us. So, for those of you who are unaware, a plow is nothing more than a machine that you push forward. Well, the problem is that if you've ever driven a vehicle or anything that you're required to keep straight, if you look in a direction other than that, it is not uncommon that you will begin to drift in that direction. And so, when we look at today, when we look at our life, when we look at the things that are happening, how do we look at this and understand and relate it to our life today? So here's what I want you to look at. In today's world, we have this thing called trauma. It's the thing that it's the catchphrase of the day. A few years ago, it was tolerance, and we had to work to tolerate each other, which is insulting and completely non biblical across the board. We are not here to tolerate each other. If we're doing that, we're putting ourselves on the wide road of destruction. So here's what we're doing when we put our hand to the plow and we look back. In life, it means that we cannot push through the obstacles we're facing in the life that we're living. Because what we're doing is we're so busy looking back, we can't look ahead. And so what happens is we're pushing forward and we're looking back is that we're holding on to the hurts of the past. We're holding on to things we've said, things people have done to us, things we've done to people. We're holding on to all of this stuff and refusing to let it go. And because we are so afraid to let it go, it's now hindering our future. It's hindering our growth. It's stopping us from reaching the point that we actually want to get to. And as long as you're stopping yourself from getting to that point, there's no one you can blame but yourself. Here's what I want you to understand. I want to talk to you about a client of mine. I had a young man that I was working with. And young man means is relative. I mean, he was in his 30s, 35, something like that. And he kept dealing with a hardship, a pain that he dealt with in his past. Now, this one was a rough one. There was nothing easy about it. But when we're constantly looking back at what it was that we went through, just like I shared, he couldn't move forward. And so what he kept doing was he kept clinging to these women who were horrible for him. And he would suffocate them because while he was not dealing with that trauma, his way of the way he thought he was dealing with it was by proving to himself that he wasn't who he feared he was. And so he would cling to women who were not good for him. And then they would go and they would want to leave him. And so because of that, it would then begin to affect his self-esteem. By the time he came to me, he was ready to let that go. And here's what happened in that process. He said, I don't understand why I do this. I don't da 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 da. And so we kind of sat down and we drew out a picture map of things that he had gone through. And so we looked at it from the biblical perspective, not a counseling perspective, but the biblical perspective, and understanding what those traumas were, how they were impacting his life, and then allowing him to come up with a plan for how he wanted to move forward from there. And so as he began to get to that place that he was sick and tired of being this person that he was, he found himself letting go. By the time his second wife left him, he was finally reaching a place where he could stand on his own 2 feet. This was tremendously important for him because emotionally he had always relied on other people to provide his needs. He would cling to them without realizing that that's what he was doing and thereby would suffocate them. So, how do we change things like this? The first thing is it always begins with forgiveness. We have to learn how to forgive. Sometimes we have to forgive others, sometimes we have to forgive ourselves. It's all about understanding forgiveness. So I want to make sure this is really clear to you. Forgiveness is never about the other person, it's only ever about you. And so I'm going to tell you a really quick story about a person who was struggling to forgive or didn't realize that she hadn't forgiven. This particular young lady, when she was at an early mid teen years, had gone to a party and she was dating this guy who was just behaving like a jerk, and it was time for her to go. She asked someone to give her a ride home because at that point in time she didn't have her license. And so the person who was giving her a ride jumped down the stairs in front of her and actually almost knocked the girl over. And so as she's walking down the stairs behind her, this boyfriend of hers picked her up and threw her over his shoulder like a bag of potatoes. And so 15 years later, when she and I are working together, she looks at this situation and she goes, wow, I understand why I've always struggled to lose weight because at the time that that event had happened, she was not struggling with her weight. And what that told her is that being thin means that somebody has the right to violate you. Doesn't have to be logical. Our mind isn't always logical with what it picks up, but that was what hers picked up. When she realized that, she began to shift the way she was eating. Now, this was not a woman who overate regularly. What it was is she would eat high calorie foods. I'm gonna pick up a bag of chips, is the kind of thing she would do, a candy bar, soda, the things that really pack on the pounds. And so she began to change the way she was eating, to change the way she was doing things, so that now when she would go and she would get out there and she started getting her life together, the weight just started falling off. She was drinking water, non-GMO foods, and eating healthy. And before you knew it, the next time I saw this young lady, she had lost, God, it must have been 100 pounds. When I saw her the last time, she said, I finally understand what it means to forgive, to be able to let go of the past and be able to move forward. You see, it's rarely by accident that we put our hands on that plow and keep looking back. It's because we are unwilling to tell ourselves the truth about what the problem is. You see, other people will sit back and say, oh, you always want to blame someone. Mm-mm. Figuring out what the problem is and then doing something about it is never about blame. It's always about building understanding. If you can look at what happened, if you can look at the problem, then what you can do is figure out, hey, this is how I need to move forward, the same way the young lady did. She realized that she was holding on to the weight because she was afraid she would be sexually assaulted or raped again, right? She was holding on to the weight for that. She was not forgiving the person who had done it, and she wasn't forgiving herself because she was ultimately holding a grudge against herself. Like if she hadn't been thin, then this couldn't have happened. Again, the mind does not always see things logically. It is our job to look at the situation and then make a logical interpretation of what it is that we see happening. With me? So, be clear about what's real and what's a lie. What was real for her was the pain she felt and hadn't dealt with. What was real for her was the weight she was carrying around. What was real for her was the pain she experienced and never dealt with. But what was the lie? That if she lost the weight, it would happen again. I'm happy to report it never happened again. And I think it's been something like 10 years since she had since she's lost all this weight. The lies are the things that keep us being held back. It's the things that we keep looking back at when we're on that plow. And that's why I want you to learn how to let go of what the lies are. Because fear can only exist where? Where there are lies. Next, be purposeful. This is not about finding your purpose, not this. This is about being intentional and deliberate about the things that you want to do. Sit down, make the time, have someone hold your hand if necessary, and walk through the different challenges that life presents. Because once you allow yourself to get purposeful, here's what's going to happen. You're going to start taking all the steps you need to take to move forward. And that's really where you want to be, is in that place where you are constantly moving forward. So, what's the final outcome? Allow yourself to gain wisdom. Wisdom is not intelligence and it's not smarts. It's a deeper, more powerful sensation than that, always. Wisdom is the thing that guides you through no matter what the challenge is and allows you to reach a place where you treat all people and all things with respect and dignity and kindness. You see, when we're going through this stuff, when we're dealing with traumas and allowing them to be the thing that we look back at, we use it as excuses for a lot of really bad behaviors that we do. We talk crazy to people, we treat them like they're nothing, and then we wrap it up under the auspice that it was a trauma. The reality is, you're just nasty and you're mean unnecessarily to people who are not the ones who caused you the pain. So now what? Now you've got this image of yourself. Is that really the image you wanted to promote? Because it's the image that you have. So, on that happy note, I want to invite you to our Masters of Reinvention workshop in beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona, June 7th, 8th, and 9th. It's coming up quick. You want to make sure that you hop on board. Might be the conference for you. If what you're struggling with is much bigger than anything financial, it's about how you see yourself. It's about understanding how you can move forward in all areas of your life and not just things that are tangible. It's more about the intangibles and who you are as a person. This is the conference for you if money is not an issue, but understanding yourself and being okay with who you are really is. This workshop is really built for those who are not willing to be offended, who have drive and are not willing to allow anything to stand in their way. This is vitally important because this will be an amazing weekend, but it's going to be work. And if you are sensitive, if you're one of those persons who's constantly looking for a reason to be angry at the world, stay home. Stay home. This is for you if you're ready to overcome every challenge. If you're sick and tired of looking at the pain and listening to the pain, feeling the pain and living the pain and not walking out of it. We'll put the link in the description below. Check it out. I look forward to seeing you next video. Oh, like, subscribe, notify if you like this video. We will know to make more of them. I will see you in the next one.